Hello. It's 2:30 p.m. here in Rome, so good afternoon, everyone present here in Castelgandolfo, and good morning, good evening, maybe good night to our friends following us online from various parts of the world. My name is Nino Puglisi, and today, on behalf of the United World Project, I welcome you to the Festival of the Buen Vivir. I will be your host today, and together with my friend, Sarah from the US. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Nino. How are you?
Very well.
Good to see everyone.
Welcome, Sarah. Sarah, before we get started, what's this title, Buen Vivir, all about?
Yes, I found it very interesting. Coming from the Western culture, many times we might think it means living well or well-being, but I learned actually that it has a deeper meaning, and it's really coming from the traditions and the ancestors of Latin America, who have a lot of knowledge and experience with the natural world. And so that Buen Vivir refers to the lifestyle where humans and nature are in harmony, and it values and safeguards that interdependence between them. So we feel that this wisdom is also a great thing to keep in mind today with our difficult situation, where we have wars and the ongoing pandemic, and that highlight the inequality and the unheard needs of many communities throughout the world, from the health crisis to the ecological one, and from economics to education, to people's inability to move around freely and their right to peace.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. And against that backdrop, today we will try together to reflect and unpack around the concept of integral ecology. And young people, especially in the focal area, have been reflecting a lot about what can motivate really our ecological action. And care has come up really high on the list of attitude towards the environment. A care that can motivate our care for people and for the environment. They really put care at the center of the quite a successful campaign called the Dare to Care campaign. You can find more information about this initiative on our website, www.unitedworldproject, all one word, .org, which is also streaming this event right now. By the way, we're going to be translated now in 8 languages: Italian, English, French, Spanish, Portuguese, Korean, Arabic, and I believe Hungarian as well. But let's go back to our festival. We started this morning with a series of workshops on various different topics, and now we're going to take a journey together, exploring the concept of integral ecology and how we can learn good practices from one another. And to do that journey, we have a special guest with us today. Thomas, welcome to the Festival of Buen Vivir.
Thank you. Delighted to be here.
So just a few words about you. You're a young Argentinian from Buenos Aires, and you got a master's in public administration from Harvard University. You're the co-founder and executive director of the Laudato Si movement, an international coalition that in just about 3 years has brought together nearly 900 Catholic organizations, including focal area movement, and a strong network of animators, really, who are committed to caring for our common home.
Then in 2017, Tomas moved to Rome with his wife in order to work closely with the Holy See, and specifically with the Dicastery for Integral Human Development. So welcome, Tomas.
Thank you.
Bienvenido.
Gracias. Delighted to be here. Thanks for the invite again.
Thank you for making space in your very busy schedule, Thomas. So before we begin, we would like to ask you a couple of questions for people here to get to know you a little bit better, and also to get to know better the Laudato Si movement, of which the focal area movement is also part. Mm-hmm. So it is striking to me how a young person like you has committed himself so strongly to the environment, to social justice, but up until a few years ago, your life was just a little bit different, right?
Yes.
Can you tell us a bit more what motivated your life choices?
Sure. So yeah, I'm a new convert to the ecological cause. I would say that growing up in Buenos Aires, the ecological issue for me was very distant. I grew up with a Franciscan background and working in the slums of Buenos Aires, and the issue of social justice was the one that was most important for me. And in fact, I have a little cousin, Jose, who is a very committed environmentalist. And I always kind of dismissed him, as I think too many Christians do, dismissed as irrelevant. Like, my line of thinking was something like, you care about the polar bears, I care about people, i.e., my topic is more important than yours. And that totally false dichotomy fell apart in 2014 when I had the chance, early 2014, when I had the chance to travel to the Philippines, and just by chance I found myself in the ruins of Super Typhoon Haiyan, which was this massive hurricane that massacred the Philippines. In 2 hours, it killed 10,000 people and just left 13 million people without a home. And that was just by chance. Soon after the hurricane, 1 or 2 months afterwards, I found myself with all these ruins and all these refugee camps of the UN, asking like, what happened here? And that's where I heard for the first time this concept of climate justice or climate injustice, that the people who did the least to create the climate crisis, I mean, I understood that the climate crisis was a big problem, but it sounded irrelevant for somebody like me from a poor country in Latin America, and grasping for the first time that it's not just for the northern countries created this problem, but it's impacting the poor first and foremost. So if I'm so concerned for the poor, I should be very concerned for the state of our common home. So that triggered this, an ecological conversion process, as St. John Paul II has framed it. And soon after that, Pope Francis, the rumors started in the press that Pope Francis was writing an encyclical, first time in the history of the church that we have an encyclical about this issue, and it triggered a very strong interest in, like, if I'm a committed Catholic, I should be doing something about this. So that's a little bit of how it started, my personal interest, and of course the ecological conversion process is a lifelong journey, by no means never complete. But it started there.
And thank you for sharing that. But what were you doing up until that point, and how did your life change after that?
Well, it changed quite a bit, actually. I was working for Google at that moment. And Google is maybe the heart of the monster, because Google, I don't know how many know, but Google is mostly an advertising company. And today we're talking about Buen Vivir. And Google is all about selling more. The very annoying YouTube advertisements, for example, that's Google. And there are others. So in a way, I found myself like, I'm creating this problem. I mean, well, it's a long story about my story with Google, but it basically invited me to change course. I mean, I was already out. I was on my way out of Google anyways, but it just accelerated that. And soon after Laudato Si was published, and with a beautiful group of people, we started the Laudato Si movement. And since then, it's been a very different approach to the issue. So.
And now you hold a very important position, working closely with the Pope and with the Vatican offices. And from your unique global perspective, at 8 years since the publication of Laudato Si, how things now? Are we making any progress? Can we be optimistic about the future?
That's a difficult question. So I would say it's a mixed bag. On one hand, yes, there is a lot of reasons for hope. Laudato Si has triggered so much in terms of the ecological conversion of the church and beyond the church. Actually, I would say that Laudato Si has been much better received and appreciated outside the church than inside the church, which is a problem. But needless to say, Laudato Si has triggered a huge, let's say, amount of movement, or the Holy Spirit through Laudato Si. And there's plenty of reasons of hope. I mean, the Laudato Si movement, just to mention a few examples, like all the work we do with the Focolare movement, which we've been walking together. We're so grateful to be walking together and learning from the Focolare movement. And it's just amazing, very inspiring, the amount of action that is popping up in all corners of the globe. Earlier for lunch, we were talking about little examples of Focolare movement members who are Laudato Si animators in one particular city and taking action and organizing things, all inspired by Laudato Si. So it's really encouraging, very heartening. At the same time, it's been more than 7 years now, or 7 years, of Laudato Si. And in the 7 years, the ecological crisis has just exacerbated. We just continue to go faster and faster towards the precipice. So both humanity at large and the church, I would say a majority of the church still continues with business as usual. And it's been 7 years. So that's honestly very discouraging. So it's a mixed bag. So there are lots of reasons for hope. The seeds are there for transformative action to emerge even more strongly in years to come. But it's not going fast enough. We need to accelerate. I'm seeing some encouraging signs now that we're not out of the pandemic. We still continue having a pandemic, but more or less that things are a little bit more stable at least. Well, now we have other destabilizing factors, but I think the seeds are there for transformative action. But we need to go much faster.
Yeah, exactly. On that note of acceleration, a few months ago we saw the publication of the IPCC report. Yeah. For those who are not familiar, the IPCC is the International Panel on Climate Change, and they warned us for red code for humanity. 234 scientists, I want to get the figures right, from 66 countries have warned that humanity activity has caused so much damage that now the crisis seems to be irreversible. So what do you think, very briefly, could be the areas for individual and collective action right now, the most urgent action?
Well, indeed, the IPCC report is very concerning. I mean, they just say what we already knew, right? But scientists have been saying this for decades and decades, and people like me have been dismissing it for decades and decades. And so what can we do about this red code for humanity? It's really to take to heart the urgency. In the first place, we really need to understand that the urgency is dramatic. Like really, that's the paradox of the ecological crisis, that it's unfolding slowly and gradually. It's not, most people, some people like in the Philippines, the ones I saw, see it very dramatically in their face. It's a sudden shock. But most people, it's gradual. And we need to take to heart the urgency. What can we do? First, to take seriously the call from Laudato Si to a spiritual conversion, the change of heart that needs to motivate change, that is at the very core of everything else. And that means praying differently, praying with creation, praying outdoors. I heard that earlier today there was a nice activity with creation outside in the garden. We need to reconnect with creation, with God's creation in a different way. Then we need to change our lifestyles drastically. We'll be talking later more about Buen Vivir. We need to take this seriously, this call for less is more, that is at the core of Buen Vivir. And then, besides that transformation of us, our families, our communities, we also need to transform society, and that includes transforming public policies. We need to engage in the public debate about the ecological crisis. We need to engage, work together with other movements out there. The environmental movement is a diverse movement that has been for decades pushing for changes from governments. We know the Paris Agreement promises are far from being fulfilled. So there's plenty of action there that we need to step up to.
Thank you, thank you. On that note, over to Sarah, maybe.
Sure. Yeah, Tomas, we really want to take in everything you've been sharing right now, and also to continue to gain perspective on, what role does policy and politics play. So we've invited another guest, Simone Borg. She's the Minister for the Environment from the Republic of Malta. So welcome, Simone. She's also connecting online virtually.
Okay. Hello. Can you hear me well?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, good. So hello to everybody. Nice to be with you. I must correct that I am not the minister. I'm the ambassador for climate action. But the minister, I would say the minister is equally committed. So we're very happy about that.
Great.
So good morning to everybody. I've been listening to what Tomas has said. I'm very familiar with Laudato Si. It's been it's a marvelous piece of work, and it was always very, very much close to my heart, both as a diplomat for my country, but also as a member of the Focolare movement. I once was with the youth movement, now I'm with the adults, but it's always been very inspiring in my work.
And we wanted to ask you also, from your perspective, where are we at this point, and how can we best manage this environmental crisis? What do you have experience that you can tell us?
Yes. Well, Tomas summed it up pretty well. The climate crisis, scientists have been warning us about it for around 3 to 4 decades. I was involved right from the very beginning because I am a lawyer by profession, but I was just graduating, and my country, Malta, had suggested, as a small island state, because one of the most vulnerable kinds of countries are small island states, had suggested to the United Nations to do something about these scientific reports. And it's where it all started. The whole treaty, the whole conference of the party system started. And we've had 30 years of climate diplomacy. And although it's been pretty slow, we have seen great steps forward in terms of getting some countries to really convert in their position from the beginning, from 30 years ago. It is a very slow process, and people get very frustrated, especially the public out there, especially young people get very frustrated. And I think the Paris, sorry about that. The Paris Agreement was it was a great milestone, but we need to make sure that the promises that states pledged at the Paris Agreement remain. The momentum is there, and that we actually, as countries, fulfill what we agreed to in 2015. Where are we now? I think the IPCC reports that we are in a state of emergency more than ever before. And so we need to accelerate what we promised in Paris. In fact, the last conference of the parties in Glasgow said that whereas Paris had said that we should review our commitments every 5 years, now we need to revise them every year to see where the reduction in emissions stand with respect to keeping the temperature of the planet below 1.5 degrees centigrade increase by the end of the century. Unfortunately, however, not all countries are committed in the same manner. There is, as you pointed out, this distinction between the richer countries, the ones that have caused the problem historically. But we must say as well that these last few years, some developing countries, those known as emerging economies, are also grossly contributing to climate change, and in fact, they've become the biggest emitters. And although the richer countries, the one with the technology, should and are supposed to take the lead, some do, and some are still, not that fast in doing so. But it's every single country that has to make some kind of efforts. Obviously, the social justice aspect requires that the poorer countries are assisted financially. And I think this is where the biggest hurdle lies at the moment, especially after the pandemic. The war in Ukraine won't help, but countries, those that are determined to push forward for the climate agenda, are still determined that despite COVID and despite the war in Ukraine and other areas of conflict which still exist, we cannot lose track of the emergency of climate change, and we need to be more ambitious. My concluding words would be, it is true that the major responsibility of daring to care lies with governments. They are the ones who have the power to change laws and to change policies. But it depends on all of us to support governments and ministers and politicians that want to make the change, because the change is not going to be easy and it is painful. And it will make us change our ways, like not using our car every day, like making sure we recycle our waste, like like not buying too many things we don't need, like clothes, for example. I'm referring to these type of consumerist mentalities in the richer countries, obviously, because in some countries you still have problems with famine and with lack of sanitation and lack of clothes and lack of the basic needs. So I'm referring to the richer countries and the richer people in these countries. We need to really change our ways and to accept the change. So when, as Tomas was saying, we need to engage in public debate, as the young people are doing, to say we need to change, we want the change. So governments are pressed and pushed into action. Because if governments feel that the people will not be happy with the laws, that they will make the changes, they just won't do them because they want to be elected again in the next election. So it's us, the people, that have to show our governments, we expect you to make the necessary changes that are needed. And our young people, in fact, are very committed to do so. And without social justice, you cannot solve the climate crisis. You cannot impose any form of change which will make people poorer, or which they will not have access to food, they won't have access to the basic conditions in life. That is why the Laudato Si is so important to follow, because there is this concept of social justice, which is at the very heart of the climate crisis. In fact, and I finish with this, the promoter of the continent that is promoting climate neutrality at the earliest, the Europe, the European Green Deal of the European Union puts social justice, the just transition, at the very core of the Green Deal, just as Laudato Si had said in 2015. I hope that is what you wanted to hear.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. I feel that call to be ambitious is so important.
Thank you very much. And perhaps a quick word, Thomas, before we move forward.
Sure, yes. That was very, very helpful intervention indeed. And I think the point that the governments will not act unless they feel the pressure. They need, and that's what they have not been feeling. Right before the pandemic, 2019 was emerging as a turning point because of the youth movement. You might remember that in 2019, the youth movement, with Greta Thunberg as the most visible, let's say, spokesperson, went out en masse to the streets demanding governments and calling them out. Unfortunately, the pandemic had a big impact in the youth movement because it was about going out to the streets as a group. But that needs to come back. It slowly restarting, but we need much more of that. And I would say the people of faith have a critical role in supporting this very important demands. The young people have been, especially they're teenagers in school that have been very, very strong. They need the support from the other generations. So I hope we can do so.
Yeah, and precisely on that societal engagement, we have a very meaningful experience from the US.
Yes, Nino, thank you. We've been in Malta and Europe now, and we'd like to invite you all, whether they're in the hall or online with us, to come and visit us in the United States for a little bit. We've been hearing about the importance of changing the cultural and political landscape, and just as Simone and Tomas were saying, that part is so important, and yet we can ask, what is our role as regular people in this work and for the environment and for preventing our climate from going into an even worse situation. So there are, we can get down, but there are smaller and larger examples of things that are happening in a positive direction. So we just want to show you an example of a local community here in the United States. It happens to be my own community. So welcome to Indianapolis. And we just want to share with you a bit of how we're trying to change this culture where we're at here. So please watch our experience.
Indiana is a U.S. state just southeast of Chicago, whose natural beauties include vast fields of corn and soy, wetlands, temperate deciduous forest, rolling hills rich in nutrients carried here by glaciers centuries ago, and where limestone and sparkling geode rocks abound. Our state is the 19th largest in the U.S., and despite significant gains in wind and solar energy, Indiana still ranks third highest in the country for coal consumption, and coal consumption for energy production. When it comes to carbon emissions, it's 10th highest. The country's 6th largest oil refinery is here, and the state is home to 54 Superfund sites, highly contaminated locations needing federal management and cleanup. So what can the regular person do to make a difference? A small group of us in Indianapolis try to help each other to remember that we need to be the change we want to see around us. We encourage each other to seek wisdom in our faith, take time to pray, and spend time out in nature, which calls us back to God and to our neighbor. We try to balance our personal lifestyles with what's good for the earth, doing things like recycling, buying local food, and reducing our water and energy use at home. But that's not enough. Pope Francis said that the basis for all creation care depends on an ecological conversion needed in each of our hearts. Our small group is convinced that God entrusted human beings to be caretakers of the earth, and we have access to the knowledge and science telling us our planet is in trouble. So we feel called to use our talents and time to do something to create a culture of creation care in our church and in society.
Why has it been important for the Archdiocese of Indianapolis to put such an emphasis on creation care over the last 5 years?
It's important in all of our lives, whether we're individuals within the church or out of the church. But the church especially has the connections in the community that we can use and build together, especially with our Catholic social teaching. It's just part of our Catholic social teaching. There's such a long history. And so it's just so important to integrate it into everything we do and to build the network. Here we are in the Archdiocese of Indianapolis. There are dioceses all over the country, all over the world, and it's exciting to be a part of that network.
Sometimes we get discouraged because efforts to pass large-scale public policies that could improve the protection of our natural resources often go unaddressed. Big economic interests get in the way, despite surveys that confirm that a majority of residents are in favor of environmental conservation. Connecting with others of different backgrounds, working for the same goal, and taking concrete actions that promote the common good helps keep our momentum going.
I joined our Archdiocese of Indianapolis Creation Care team because I think that climate change is the biggest challenge of our generation, and I wanted to be a part of the solution to do something about it. I want my daughter to be able to grow up in a safe, happy, and healthy world. So in just the last year, through our Archdiocese Creation Care team, I've been able to be a part of a tree sale. And we have also successfully encouraged our Archbishop to enroll in the Laudato Si Action platform. I've been able to take part in a virtual prayer service on creation and migration, and help out with our National Catholic Youth Conference to spread the message of the cry of the earth and the cry of the poor. Just in the last year, I have noticed in myself a greater sense of hope by being involved in these things. I no longer feel powerless to do anything about this huge problem, but I can see progress and hope.
One of our biggest successes in the last few years has been an energy efficiency and pilot sustainability program that we launched with a group of summer interns. There we helped 4 willing Catholic churches and 1 high school in the Archdiocese get energy audits and reduce their energy consumption. A few months ago, another high school had solar panels installed due to the generous donation that we helped facilitate.
One of us who is an environmental expert has linked us to a more global effort of the worldwide church. He was invited to be part of a team at the Vatican that has spent the last few years developing the Laudato Si Action platform. The platform is a global 7-year initiative inspired by Pope Francis's teachings, and through it the church encourages local parish communities, businesses, institutions, and individuals to commit to better care for the environment, and provides resources to help them change their habits. Being part of this global effort gives us much hope. Through our work in the Catholic Circle, we've also connected with people of many faith traditions who are working to address the causes of climate change. This year, we signed a joint faith-climate declaration that went to our governor, lobbied for renewable energy at the State House, and worked in our various communities to spread the passion for environmental care. We encourage each other and share advice on reducing our impact of our worship buildings on the atmosphere. One of our original group now supports a new energy efficiency program for congregations of any background. It's an enriching multi-faith experience where each one is rooted in their own faith and yet willing and eager to learn from the other traditions as we work together to care for the future of our planet.
Beautiful. Thank you, Sarah. And thank you to the community of Indianapolis and the US. It's great to see how we really need a rich pool of communities and science, spirituality, institutions, really to make a change. And now we want to bring into the conversation another local community. If we come back to Europe,
богатство разных искусства.
And I believe we are connected with Peter and Mirjana from Croatia, in particular from, let's get this right, Križevci. Are you connected, Peter, Mirjana?
Petar iz Križevaca.
Can you hear us? Hello? Probably need a few more seconds. Hello? Yeah, here they come. Did I pronounce it correctly? Let me try again. Križevci, also known as Mariapoli Faro for the Focolare friends. Yeah.
Okay, so we are coming to you from our 4th annual conference, Empowerment of Local Communities. Inspired and motivated by the prophetic economy event in Rome 2018, where several positive initiatives for sustainable communities were presented. Croatian Association for Economy of Communion felt the need to do the same on a local level. So at the annual conference of the Economy of Communion in 2019, we invited change makers already active in transforming the system. Altogether, we bring together 100 participants, experts in their fields. Among participants, a big joy was in the air because of mutual passion for change. Since then, together with the Croatian permaculture movement, we organized the event on an annual basis with approximately 60 people from 30 different organizations. So at the end, second prophetic economy or empowerment of local communities in 2020, with the central theme of encyclical Laudato Si as an umbrella that we can all fit into through our common home, care for our common home. Dr. Zoran Turza of Catholic University and Cro Laudato Si initiative presented the encyclical as the highest document of the Church. In the dialogue, it emerged that we must continue to work together on the care of our common home. They saw in us a church and look at us as people with meaning in their lives and who enjoy the joy of communion. The key words at the end of the event were hope, communion, positivity, resurrection, diversity, etc. Continued networking on formation resulted in Association's incubation program, IIN, started following a group of ecological farmers, helping them to establish a sustainable short food supply chain, delivering fresh food harvested the same day to the doors of regular customers. In the morning, it collects only what will be delivered in the afternoon. There is no storage. We have created a community with this. This year, 5 members of the association enrolled in the lifetime training course, Laudato Si, through a dialogue on integral ecology, organized by Croatian Catholic University, with the aim to adopt and expand the knowledge of the social scientists of the Church related to the conservation of nature and environment. Lectures by 16 scientists, always available for questions and discussion. I used to consider before ecology as ideology, but now I understood more that it is a highly complex interdisciplinary science. Mirjana?
Thank you, Peter. My name is Mirjana, and I greet you all, sisters and brothers from all around the world. I will tell you something more specific about the event today. As Peter already said, we are meeting here for the 4th time in a row for empowering local communities. Always in the beautiful environment of Mariapoli Faro in Križevci, Croatia, with the support of our Focolar hosts. Each year, we choose different important and actualized topics, and each year we grow in numbers and participation. And this year's topic is the alarm bell, climate change, civil initiatives, and government. So we are putting our efforts into extracting new ways of cooperation with authorities in the challenging context of a system running down due to its, unfortunately, multiple crises. Here we now have 75 participants. Unfortunately, you don't see them all, but they're here. From 37 organizations from several countries of Southeast European region, coming together to exchange our questions and find the answers, if possible, as well as to network at a regional level. What is important, this event is blended, held live and online at the same time, and also vegetarian. So we are supporting minimization of our ecological footprint also through those practices. Today, we speak out our questions and concerns, and tomorrow we are going to present examples of a good transition to post-fossil society that are already implemented in the local communities. One such shining example is a non-governmental initiative named Vestigium that started as a response to a lack of basic urban social services in the Croatian capital city, such as kindergarten, libraries, open markets, and similar. And surprisingly, within 5 years of communal work as a self-sustained social center, it has evolved into one of the most visible green transition organizations in East Europe. This civil organization. This very event is also one of the results of its extraordinary cooperation work, and the founders of the initiative are now transferring the same model into the next local community in Croatia. So at the end, we are hoping that through national and transnational networking of activist and transition initiatives, we are going to have more and more similar great examples of evolving and resilient society, successfully fighting crises of all kinds, including climate collapse. Thank you.
Thank you, Simone. Thank you, Thomas. I hope we have some still time left to see the short movie clip that we prepared. Bye.
Mi smo Jasminka i Željko, gradska djeca koja su smogla hrabrosti, volje i želje da se maknu od gradskog načina života i sve ono što nosi, preseliti se, maknuti se na selo i početi neku novu avanturu u poljoprivredi, potpuno drugačiju od onoga što smo do tada radili. Mi smo živeći u gradu radili klasične poslove. Došli smo do pozicija nekakvog menadžmenta kroz naš trud i rad i priznanje, ali smo shvatili da to nisu one vrijednosti koje mi želimo živjeti. Ono što je nas navelo na ovakav način poljoprivrede je upravo to da proizvodimo kvalitetnu hranu koja će ljudima činiti dobro, koja će se osjećati bolje, bit će zdravija, koja će uživati u okusima, a ne da će hranu doživljavati kao nešto što sastavni dio nekog rituala. U početku je veliki izazov u onome čime smo se počeli baviti je u biti nedostatak znanja. Ali smo eto imali sreću naići na prave ljude. Dosta rano smo imali sreću poznati našeg kasnijeg mentora Aleksa Podolinskog, Australca, koji se bavi biodinamikom u Australiji na ogromnim površinama i pomažući drugim ljudima, ne samo kroz savjete, nego time što nas je upoznao sa drugim poljoprivrednicima van Hrvatske koji se bave sa biodinamikom, otvorio nam je njihova vrata, njihova imanja. Na cijelom putu prije svega trebalo jako puno volje i hrabrosti se u to upustiti. Mogu reći da nismo imali manjak podrške. Manjak podrške od bližnjih, manjak podrške od lokalnih ljudi koji smo mi bili 7. svjetsko čudo, neko ko je došao iz grada obrađivati zemlju, kao sigurno nećete uspjeti, to je nemoguće, to ne funkcionira, svi vas pokušavaju obeshrabriti i utjerati u one nekakve konvencionalne okvire gdje se mi nismo htjeli dati. Prije svega vodimo brigu o zdravlju tla kroz bolju obradu zemlje od one koje se primjenjuju u klasičnoj poljoprivredi.
Prva osnovna prednost je da potrošač ima zdravu hranu na stolu, broj 1. Zna odakle ta hrana dolazi, uvijek može doći ovdje i vidjeti kako raste njegova hrana. Želimo biti dio osviještenog izbora. I kroz ono što mi radimo želimo isto tako utjecati na svijest konzumenata. Mislim da možemo biti mladim ljudima ono čega mi nismo imali, a trebalo nam je. Možemo pružiti vrlo konkretne odgovore za sve ono što radimo i na kraju krajeva pomoći ljudima da si bitno skrate nekakva lutanja, traženja i na kraju krajeva mogućnost zajedničkog rasta je uvijek tu isto tako.
Ta razmjena znanja, iskustava, to je neprocjenjivo. Dan danas smo jako puno ljudi u kontaktu i jako puno se međusobno pomažemo kroz nekakva nova znanja, iskustva, isprobavajući neke nove stvari. Ono čemu smo mi dobri dolazi iz nas samih, ne nešto što smo naučili, nego naš žar, želja, upornost, hrabrost, isprobati nešto novo, živeći vrijednosti dijeljenja znanja, dobroga, iskustava.
Živimo život u skladu sa svojim uvjerenjima, živimo život u nadi da ćemo jedan komad zemlje ostaviti u boljem stanju nego što smo ga našli. I prije svega mislim da se kroz ovo što vidite ovdje iza nas vidi koliko poštujemo majku prirodu, koliko ju uvažavamo i koliko dobra je to ona nama svima zajedno daje kad se nešto radi iz ljubavi.
Thank you to the community in Croatia. We were supposed to have another experience from Congo now, but apparently the connection is not working. So we can take the opportunity to stop maybe for a moment and maybe reflect on what we just witnessed here. This very powerful interlink between people and planet. We cannot really think of a future, shaping any future, if we don't think of a healthy, sustainable, and mutually thriving relationship between people and planet. How do you see that, Thomas?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, beautiful stories, both, and very inspiring. This is what we spoke earlier. There are plenty of stories out there, like things are happening. It's just not in the massive scale. They should, but they are there. And I think, yeah, they invite us to, I don't know, something that struck me from the last story is they said in Croatia, we're living according to our beliefs, right? So it's taken seriously. Like, we do a lot of talking, but to really have the courage to change things pretty drastically, as they did in that story, is what's needed. And we need it at a massive scale. It's not just, oh, it's nice that some people are doing it here and there. We need the whole society to change their ways, or our ways. So yeah, I'm very inspired by those stories, and also the value of community, how changing our ways is a way of also just making healthier societies, healthier communities. And like, I don't know, just thinking of that last example of food production, rather than going to this massive supermarkets that have this long supply chains that are super environmentally destructive and also so distant. Everything's so cold. There's zero sense of community. All these examples are exactly the opposite. So yeah, it's very inspiring on various levels. And also just being in contact with nature. We spoke about the contact with nature. It's also an invitation in that regard. So very inspiring.
Thanks, Tomas. Sarah, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Tomas. It's your experience really makes this trip around the world a little bit more dynamic and interesting for sure. And, thank you. Now we're going to go down under to Australia. And this segment is talking about biodiversity, working together as a community for the environment and with young people involved. So our friends in Australia have sent this video sharing about a project that they've been doing to help clean up a forest together, with both adults and children and young people together. And they also had this in the context of an event where they were sharing and educating and raising awareness about environmental care. So let's watch this video from Australia.
We are the Teens Community of Melbourne. As a part of our efforts to care for our sick planet, we have been involved in restoring some of the biodiversity of our gathering place, St. Paul's Retreat Centre. It occupies 2.5 hectares of cleared farmland. 100 years ago, the early European settlers cleared the native forest of eucalyptus and acacia trees, and many species of shrubs and wildflowers. It became a fruit orchard, but after 50 years it became economically unproductive. Part of the reason it served drought made growing and producing apples, pears and other fruits very difficult. This will happen more and more in the future if we don't reduce greenhouse gas.
The Fogalari movement in Australia, together with a community missionary of priests, run this place, and we thought that it would be good to restore the habitat, native trees and shrubs, in order to provide a habitat for these native birds, mammals and reptiles who are sheltered and fed by the native vegetation. They will act as a biodiversity corridors for the animals to go from one area of the native woods to another in the surrounding areas. Moreover, these species will help us capture carbon from the atmosphere, thus removing these greenhouse gases.
Last year, after the first year of lockdown, we were able to plant seedlings of more than 100 native trees and shrubs of 16 species. We had an 82% survival after surviving their first dry summer without being watered. They had grown twice their height. Encouraged by this positive start, we then thought of doing more planting, so in summer we collected the nuts and seed pods from 10 native trees, shrubs and wildflowers. We then dried them and sowed in seed containers once the sun and hot weather had cooled down. They germinated, and we transplanted 400 seedlings into growing tubes, and with regular attention, feeding and watering, they should be ready to plant out in the colder, wet months of winter. We will invite our family and friends to plant these seedlings in another cleared area of our retreat centre.
Just like the Indigenous people of Australia, we too want to heal the land, which has been scarred with so much neglect and devastation by recent massive bushfires. We must rediscover the sense of the sacred in the natural world in order to care for it.
So we thank our friends from Australia. And now we head to the Emerald Island, to Ireland, in particular to Belfast, and where we have connected Clemens and his family. Clemens, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you very well, good to be part of it.
Thank you for being here, Clemens. Are you there with your family or you're alone?
Yeah, I am here. My family is just away.
Okay.
But normally they're all here with me, but not today.
All right.
So I have to go without them. I will start that the initiative that we did was for children from Gen 4, that is quite young, from age 4 to 10 years. And it was on the 13th of March, we had a children's tree planting event with 55 people. The participants included Focolare, local neighbours and friends. We met on the front lawn of Bloomville House. That is the home of our neighbour Christopher Fettis. And Christopher has a great love for trees and nature, and Bloomville House is surrounded by woods and many ancient, huge trees. To welcome everybody, we started with a picnic on the lawn with warm sunshine surrounded by magnificent trees. This was an important time to meet and greet all the children and their parents so that we could get to know each other better. After the picnic, all the children equipped with rubber boots and their small sandbox shovels went to the tree planting site. In total, the children planted on that day 42 trees as follows. That is, the parents held the tree upright in the hole and the children shoveled in the soil. Next, the children jumped around the tree to firm the soil tight, which is very important, and all the larger trees were tied to posts to keep them upright. So it is not only important to plant trees, but it's very important to look after them for the next 3 years after planting, to take care, to follow up on it. After the tree planting, we showed the children 6 wonders of nature around Bloomville House. At each of the 6 stops, one of the parents gave a talk and actions to open the children's eyes to the wonders of nature around us. The first stop, we stopped beside a willow trees. These were green, brown, and yellow, which were always used by our ancestors in Ireland for hundreds of years for making baskets and many vessels from the flexible branches. However, when plastic came, these traditional skills of basket making were lost. Our second stop about the wonders of nature around us for the children was a spring of clean drinking water pouring from the side of a hill. Every child had to practice to learn how to cup their hand and drink water the natural way from the spring. And that was a very different experience to drinking bottled water with a cup at home. Our third stop on our nature walk was a native Irish oak woodland. This was the historic jungle of Ireland before modern farming. So our ancient Gaelic ancestors in Ireland built their houses and homes using oak and earthen mounds from this type of woodland. The next stop on our tour, nature tour, was a badger set. The badgers are black and white animals that live underground in burrows or a set, and they made many big tunnels where a big family of badgers lived. These tunnels were cleaned when we saw them of leaves with many paw marks or tracks in the mud, so they were very active. The badgers at that time, that was in March, were just waking up from their winter hibernation, and they were very active. Our next stop was a dark grove of old beech trees. The children learned all about bats at this stop. We had many bat boxes which were put on the trees for the bats to roost and sleep in during the day and during the winter. At nighttime, the bats come out and go hunting for insects with their unique echolocation. The children, we got them to try out echolocation themselves. So we had them running around in the trees, shouting with their eyes closed. This was great fun, but probably not a good idea. So finally, to finish off the day, we all gathered for a group photograph under a 250-year-old Spanish chestnut tree. It was a day filled with magic memories of young people planting young trees, all the way to ancient trees planted by our forefathers centuries ago. So there's an old Irish saying, which is very true: to leave a legacy, go and plant a tree. So let our legacy be the planting of many trees, and may we inspire our young children with a great love for trees. So that was our event, which we did in March. I hope you could hear me well,
Yes,
Nina.
thanks. Thank you very much. Very inspiring. And many greetings to your family, your kids, and your wife, and all the community there. Very, very important.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Wonderful to be part of the discussion. Wonderful to be here. Thank you.
Remain on the call if you like, and as we continue, and perhaps you have a couple of minutes, Thomas. I was really inspired by that sense of wonder they were trying to instill into the younger generation, that sense of being connected to your roots as well, the Gaelic tradition, but also I think the point they made about caring for the trees, moving from just tree planting. There is a lot of emphasis on tree planting at the moment, but then you need to follow on the planting and make sure that they're actually growing and not dying out.
Mm-hmm.
Would you like to say something about that?
Yeah, so a few reflections come up indeed. One is this culture of care. That's the title of the event, right? Care just requires ongoing care. It's not something that you do once and here and there. It's something that requires, it's a habit of care. And indeed, caring for a plant, or even caring for, the Croatian story earlier of growing vegetables. You need to care for those vegetables as well, growing. It's a habit that we're invited to live. And then I'd also highlight the importance of this last story of knowing your local ecosystems. Most people have no idea what are the species in their both flora and fauna, animal and plant life, have no idea what's their local ecosystem. And part of engaging and caring for a common home starts by caring for your local ecosystem. Each ecosystem is absolutely unique. And moreover, it's, as many of the church theologians over the centuries have spoken, that creation in each of these ecosystems is a book. God wrote two books. One is the more recent book, the one of sacred scripture, but then there's the first book, the more ancient book that God wrote, which is the cosmos, the universe, and this planet in particular, in each of these ecosystems. So getting to know each of the species is a way of learning something that God has to say as well, and that God deeply cherishes and loves. So anyways, it's all connected. I think this kind of activities are essential to inspire the other activities. If we want to do the hard work of organic farming or doing the various other initiatives we heard, it needs to be driven by this motivation, and this kind of contact with nature, contact with your local ecosystem is essential.
I like to pick up on that sense of connection that you emphasized, and perhaps on that note, we could together listen to a piece of poetry by an Irish poet, Seamus Heaney, a 1995 Nobel Prize winner, and I'm sure it will inspire us with a sense of connectedness with nature, with the cosmos, as you pointed out. It is a poem called St. Kevin and the Blackbird. So let's listen to Seamus Heaney in his own voice.
This is called St. Kevin and the Blackbird, a little meditation. It's based on a sense of doing the right thing for the reward of doing the right thing. A labor of love and faith and chosen values opted for and stood by. St. Kevin and the Blackbird. And then there was St. Kevin and the Blackbird. The saint is kneeling, arms stretched out inside his cell. But the cell is narrow, so one turned up palm is out the window, stiff as a crossbeam. When a blackbird lands and lays in it and settles down to nest, Kevin feels the warm eggs, the small breast, the tucked neat head and claws, and finding himself linked into the network of eternal life, is moved to pity. Now he must hold his hand like a branch out in the sun and rain for weeks, until the young are hatched and fledged and flown. And since the whole thing's imagined anyhow, imagine being Kevin. Which is he? Self-forgetful, or in agony all the time, from the neck on out down through his hurting forearms? Are his fingers sleeping? Does he still feel his knees? Or has the shut-eyed blank of under-earth crept up through him? Is there distance in his head? Alone and mirrored clear in love's deep river, to labour and not to seek reward, he prays. A prayer his body makes entirely, for he has forgotten self, forgotten bird, and on the riverbank, forgotten the river's name.
Wow, that was really powerful. And it just leaves me with that sense of the connectedness between everything, and the importance of slowing down and taking that time to appreciate nature. So kind of linked to that, Tomas, I was wondering what you might tell us about the link between spirituality and our work for the environment, and how is that in your own experience, and how is that in the work for the Laudato Si movement, and for those of us who want to be committed in this work for the environment?
Sure, yeah, it's lovely poem. I'd never heard it before, so really nice to hear that. And indeed, a nice reminder that in our Christian tradition, there's so many of the saints, like Saint Kevin, but so many other saints throughout the long history of the Christian family that have had this deep communion with all creation. Well, the very inspiration of Laudato Si is Saint Francis of Assisi. We haven't mentioned him today, but like Saint Kevin, another example of a saint that profoundly loved God's creation and had this profound communion with all creation. And this is one of the revolutionary invitations of Saint Francis, or Francis of Assisi first, and now of Francis of Rome, is to have this sense of universal fraternity with all creation. The Canticle of the Creatures, Saint Francis praises God through and with sister moon, brother sun, sister water, like all creatures for Saint Francis are brothers and sisters. And unless we, let's say, recover that gaze, that spiritual worldview of seeing all creation as our brothers and sisters, which is a radical act. Just think about it. Like, if you're walking in a normal park anywhere, in any urban park, and you see somebody saying, like, this is my brother tree, or this is my sister flower, like, people will say, like, you're pretty crazy. That's bizarre. And it's a profound, like, St. Francis really meant it. He really meant that he felt all these creatures as brothers and sisters, which is that source of motivation, all being children of God. And thus we need to care for them. I think that paradigm, which is a massive paradigm shift for everybody inside the Christian family and outside, could be a powerful source of motivation. That's why what I mentioned at the very beginning, this ecological conversion process, unless we change the way we see the natural world, we won't be able to have the strong motivation to care, to do this hard work long term. So yeah, anyways, this wonderful saints, and there's so many others. These are just two examples. There's plenty of other saints that we have somehow forgotten. So in terms of your question, like, spirituality has indeed a key role. And we have become, we need to discover, I mean, we like, at Laudato Si movement, we like saying this, or actually Laudato Si, the encyclical, writes about an ecological spirituality. That's a concept that Francis speaks about, that we need to cultivate this ecological spirituality. And an ecological spirituality happens where? Outdoors or indoors? Outdoors. And for some reason, including myself till recently, my whole spiritual life happened indoors. Too many Christians, including myself till recently, we pray indoors. That indoors is a synonym of God and not outdoors. So anyways, I think that's an invitation, little things like that will motivate true commitment.
Absolutely. And I think you rightly emphasize the Christian roots, but of course that holds true also for other religion traditions. I mean, the other one I'm a little bit more familiar is the Islamic tradition, and I lived in a Muslim country for some years, and I was really deeply struck by the continuous references to nature, to protection of animals, and that is embedded into the Islamic tradition. And more recently, we've seen Pope Francis signing a document together with other faith leaders last 4th October 2021, launching the Faith Plans for People and Planet that will now link with the UNEP meeting early June in Stockholm. And it's also a momentous occasion really for religions to capitalize on the capacity to mobilize people and to motivate people moving from their spiritual values. And and now it comes a little bit to also our communities, our own focolare communities. What can we do more, I mean, what you said about spiritual values being key, I think it holds true with a lot of people. I mean, I'm a scientist myself. There are a lot of scientists here in the room, but science alone cannot really solve the problem. I mean, nobody is converted by pie charts. No, people are converted by stories. And religions are great at telling meaningful stories that are true. Maybe they are not historical in the details they describe, but they are true, profoundly true. So some people in the focolare, of course, we've been somehow living integral ecology as part of our own spirituality for many years, but now we're becoming more aware of the sense of urgency that is behind action. So during last General Assembly. We had the General Assembly of the Focolare last February 2021. The Focolare really identified care creation as one of the top priorities for the movement. So we've been reflecting together on how we can really motivate from our own spirituality ecological action. And I would like to quote 3 things that we pledged in the assembly. We said that we will review our lifestyles, both personally and as a movement. We will verify the ecological sustainability of our structures and activities. And we will network with other organizations to achieve environmental goals. So I think we're on the right path, definitely. And in that context, and now a Focolare plan, ecological plan, is being sort of hatched. And I can see on the screen already Anna Clara, who's been participating in that process, but also other people here in the room. Of course, I'm not going to spoil the Focolare Eco Plan because it's going to be launched properly soon, I believe, in the next link up. But it's an effort really to encourage and foster positive change in the way members of our communities worldwide live out care for creation in daily lives and activities. And for that, we really want to start with the young people. So we have now 2 very interesting experiences and programs and projects that I would like to hear from. So let's start with Anna Clara now. Anna Clara, you're calling us from?
Hello, Nino. Hello, everyone. I'm Ana Clara, and I'm calling directly from Brazil. I'm very happy to be here with you guys today to talk a little bit about our initiative called the Seed Funding Program. As we already saw during all this presentation, we are facing a complex crisis, which is social and environmental. Thomas already talked a lot about the encyclical Laudato Si, and how Pope Francis explains how everything is interconnected and how it must be cherished by love and respect, because all depend on one another. Chiara Lubick, the founder of the Focolare movement, also explained how our contact with nature is. She felt that God sustains nature, keeps it alive, beneath it, gives it that beauty that it is, the harmony, unity among all things that are in it. So when a flower blooms, it is for love that it blooms. It does not bloom by chance. So as a movement, we feel the responsibility of studying deeply the problems that affect the world, and we compromised in concrete actions. Chiara taught us that what is missing is not technical and economic resources, but an extra soul, which means new love for mankind, to make us all feel responsible towards everyone. The Focolare movement prioritize today are linked in the fact with the cry of the earth, the cry of the poor, and the cry of the new generation. We are open to build bridges and find solutions together. From all that, we want to present the Seed Funding Program. It is an initiative that puts into practice the commitment of the Focolare movement towards an integral ecology. The Seed Funding Program is a microfinancing program sponsored by Faith Invest. The aim of the program is to sustain and encourage significant and promising initiatives in different parts of the world towards the realization of local or national ecological plans within the Focolare communities. So all of these experiences that we saw before, they could also be part of the Seed Funding Program. The program will select 10 projects that can be funded up to 1,000 euros. The Seed Funding Program is looking for youth-led and intergenerational initiatives that are ongoing or are to be done, aiming to change in our personal and communitarian lifestyle, envisioning sustainable relationships between nature and human beings, and working with our local context. For that, an international and interdisciplinary jury will select the projects according to the following criteria. So the criteria to your project to be selected are orientation of the project towards integral ecology in favor of people and planet. The project should involve intergenerational efforts with young people playing a significant role in the leadership and implementation of each project. We, the youth, lead our projects. And then the project must involve the local community, possibly at the national level. And the project should show how spiritual values motivate ecological action, possibly with a communal and interreligious dimension. So we are all talking about ecology and how this our approach as a movement has a spiritual touch on it. So the projects must also share and show a little bit of our spiritual values. All the young people from the Focolare movement are invited to apply to this call. Remember that it is a multidisciplinary and an international call. Everybody from each part of the world can participate. In order to participate, you may feel some crucial informations. You need to do a framework and also read very carefully the call for projects survey. For you to have access to all this information, you need to go to the website of New Humanity, which is www.new-humanity.org. There you will find all the information to apply to the seed funding program. We feel that we know that this is our contribution to keep working for our common home. Let's not lose our sensitivity to hear the cry of the earth, the poor, and the future generation. We want to move together to build an integral ecology in the places we are. Thank you. And right now we will see a very short video to express a little bit what is the proposal of this call. Let's watch.
Do you hear it? Do you hear the cry of the planet? Do you hear the cry of the people? Together we can do it. We can be a change for the people and the planet.
And here on the stage we got now Bianca. can tell us more about another project.
Hello. So, as we have seen, there are a lot of projects, actions, and experiences that are helping us to have a broader vision about what we are doing here and what we are doing in general. And I'm here to introduce you another project, and of which the Youth for United World and New Humanity from different countries of Europe are partners. And it's called Green Inclusive, a project that promotes environmental sustainability with the care to also include the social minorities. Green Inclusive use the methodology Learn, Action, and Share. This can be seen through formation on integral ecology, also with strategies of concrete actions, and with the dissemination plan to spread the sensitize people on this theme. Let's watch now a short video to explain better about this project.
Wow, both of these projects make me interested and curious to see what's going to come up in the next months and this year. So we've heard a lot of stories from around the world and from different types of commitments in our work for the environment, and how that connects human beings and human beings with nature, and with those especially on the margins. As we get ready to close, I think, we can be aware that maybe there are two temptations that we need to keep in mind as we think about our work. And one is, on one hand, we can think, oh, the environment, that's something that's for the politicians to figure out. I'm a regular person. My life is something else in society. And then another temptation might be to say, well, I'm already recycling. I turn off my lights. I do small daily actions. I'm doing enough, and I think that both of those are temptations, and that they can help us to keep a balance between doing the small daily actions, but also making sure that we seek out opportunities to be part of these larger answers. So, Nino, I think I'll pass it on to you.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Unfortunately, we're running out of time. But perhaps you have a final word, Thomas, to share with us, or something that to inspire even more commitment.
Sure. So I would say, just to remind ourselves of the urgency of this action. It's great to hear with the inspiration of these stories that it's possible. We really need to keep this message alive, that it is possible. And all the stories illustrate that. but we need to do much more. The urgency couldn't be greater. The cry of the earth and the cry of the poor couldn't be starker. So, well, I hope we can take that cry to heart and do something about it. So, and just to express my gratitude as the Laudato Si movement for this joint journey with the Focolare movement. We're very proud to be walking together, and of course we look forward to the next steps of our journey. There's Laudato Si Week coming up next week. You can check online the website of Laudato Si Week, and then we have the Season of Creation. So there's in September, there's multiple opportunities to continue working together across all sectors. Here in Italy and wherever you are online, there's so many possibilities. So thank you. Laudato Si.
Thank you, Thomas. On behalf of everyone here, perhaps we can give him a round of applause. And I really wish you well and a lot of energy and stamina to also for your, very important role at this time in the church and for humanity, really. And so now it remains only to thank the technical staff behind the translators, and perhaps they also deserve a big round of applause. So for those who are here in person, we'll continue this afternoon with a series of workshops. I think there is a slide that we can put on the screen to know about the workshops. And for those who follow us online, you can keep following us. And for the next webinar at around the same time, I believe tomorrow. Anyway, I'm sure you can find the information on the internet. And next webinar will be in Spanish, completely in Spanish. So, and to all of you who have been following, thank you for your attention. See you next time. Bye.